Today we're going to talk about how a cornhole bag gets a snag or pull, show you what is happening, and show you how to fix it with our bag repair tool from In the Bag Cornhole. First, here's a familiar sight we've all seen at one point or another. The dreaded snag in your cornhole bag causing a pull in the thread. Why does it look like this, and how do we fix it? Well, to quickly illustrate what is happening, I made this large-scale representation of bag fabric made out of some colored strips of paper. Bag fabrics are made with threads woven together vertically and horizontally in various patterns according to the needs of the fabric. Imagine each of these red and beige strips are all a single piece of thread, very magnified. The beige colors are all vertical threads, and the red colors are all horizontal threads. You can see actually how the red horizontal thread passes over this beige vertical thread and under the next, then over, and then under, and then over, and then under, and so on all the way across. When you do this over and over again, you end up with a solid woven fabric. And when we make a cornhole bag, we take this fabric and we print a design on special paper, then transfer the ink to the fabric with heat, a process called sublimation. Here I have another crude representation of those same strips of paper woven together, but in this case they're all white and they've been printed on. When you are throwing bags on boards that aren't perfectly sanded or in environments where there might be sharp cement, rocks, or sticks, or other harsh environments, the threads can snag on something, causing what we call a pull in the thread. We call it that because the thread has actually been pulled out of alignment, as you see here. Since the bag was printed on threads that were woven together, the threads that were underneath were not actually printed on and remain white. When the thread is pulled out of alignment, you are now exposing the white parts of the thread and hiding the ink-colored parts of that thread underneath. That is what gets you this typical dotted white line pattern that you see in a cornhole bag with a pull. So when we are repairing a pull in a bag, what we need to do is pull that thread back into its original location so that it lines up again with the original artwork, hiding the white areas and exposing the ink-colored areas in their correct spot. Now, this is much easier to say than actually do, of course, but I think it's helpful to understand what is causing that problem in the first place so that we can now understand how to put it back together. Oftentimes, a pull can actually be caused by a snag that loops out. If this snag got pulled out, you would see the dotted line goes this direction and it also goes this direction, and it may be in different distances on those two directions as well. Your job is now to figure out where the artwork needs to go back together in order to pull it back into the directions that the artwork originally was in. One big clue that you can look at is the colors. If you can find a part of the thread with a color that is clearly belonging to another part of the artwork, that can be a great way to figure out how far it needs to be pulled back in the correct direction. So in this case, you might see the blue over here, and you know that that line right here definitely lines up with this, so you would know that it needs to go back here, and you pull it just enough, knowing that now you have to pull it back the other direction in order to reveal it, the rest of the artwork, and clean it all up. Now let's try repairing a bag so that you can see this in action. First, I want to show you our bag repair tool. It comes in this hard plastic protective tube, and once you remove it, you will see that it is one solid piece of stainless steel. And if you look at it, the hook on the top here is strategically designed at a 90-degree angle. This 90-degree angle makes it much easier to grab and, more importantly, release threads, minimizing the chance of damaging your bags. There's also ridges where you hold the repair tool to give you a solid grip and prevent it from becoming slippery in your hand. Okay, let's go ahead and bring back the bag that you saw at the beginning of the video. Now you can see pretty clearly here where the pulls have formed, and as I look at the bag closely, I can see that there's a snag right here, which has likely caused this pull, and there's a snag right around here that is slightly raised here. You can kind of see as I push it around, that's probably what has caused this pull. So what we need to do is figure out where the thread needs to go in order to get back into the correct positions, taking away that dotted line like we saw on the paper strips earlier. So The nice thing about this one is that there's not a whole lot going on the right side of the snag, which means that it's probably not going this far or needing to be pulled this far in the right direction. It's mostly going to need to go in the left direction, so that is where we're going to go ahead and start. What we'll do is we'll grab the one right next to it, go under, and you want to be careful about grabbing just that. You're going to just grab it a little bit, just pull a little bit. You can see that kind of go down just a bit. We're going to go ahead and grab this one right here, and we're going to keep working it a little bit. Now, oh, did you see that one? That one actually pulled it quite a bit better into place, and so now it's pretty clear right here. So you'll see that as you go along, sometimes one little pull won't quite correct it, but the next pull will. I'm going to actually go back here and try to fix this even. Pull this back. That's pretty close there. Sometimes I'll use the blunt edge of the other side of our tool just to kind of work the thread and pull it with my fingers. And now you can see it kind of went back into place there. So now we're going to keep going along here and try to get this all back in order. Grabbing, and you want to make sure you get just the line that was out. It can be tricky. You want to definitely look real close at this, and I'm working at an angle so that you can see and my head's not in the way. Ideally you want to be right over the top of this, but you can see actually just with a little bit of work there. Now this is, mind you, a pretty easy pull. Sometimes you have them much longer going across the whole bag, but that one went pretty quickly and you can already see a lot of improvement. Now I'm going to go ahead and attack this other one. I'm going to turn it sideways because it's much easier to go left and right than to go up and down with these. Now this one's a little trickier. We got the snag right in the middle of where we see this pull and the little dotted lines going. So we're going to have to figure out how far do we need to pull it this way and how far do we need to pull it back that way. What we want is get this snag that's hanging out back into the bag and into its proper location. So I'm just going to, I like to go right sometimes here. I'm going to just go a tiny bit. Then I can tell that this one is longer. I'm going to see if I can just try to figure out where this was supposed to be on the right side. And already I'm kind of getting it there. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. There's a little bit left right here, but I think as we pull this, we'll probably correct that. So we're going to go in, we're going to try to grab this one. It can be tricky. You want to be real patient with this and don't speed it. I'm kind of going quickly. I've done a lot of bags, but you want to take your time because you don't want to do any more damage than has already been done. So I'm going to grab the thread. Actually grabbed the wrong one there. So if you start to see that you're grabbing the wrong one, just let go of it, pull back out and start again. And sometimes if one's being a little nasty to you, maybe skip one and go for the next one. Pull out. The nice thing is once you learn how to do this, if you pull too much, you know how to get it back. You know how to come back here and fix that. So we're going to go here. And we're going to try a little bit, oops, a little bit further here. Now we're getting close. Sometimes I'll use my fingers now, try to like work that back in. We've got most of it complete, but there's a little bit off here. So we're going to play with it a bit and see what we can do. Sometimes I'll pull back the other direction, see, is it going that way? Or is it going the other way? Likely it's probably going left, it looks like, as I do this. And at the end of this video, we will share a few disclaimers, and one of them is about this kind of a thing. Sometimes you won't get a perfect result. Be very careful with this hook too. It's very, very sharp. Okay, so it's pretty close. Unfortunately, this one may be twisted a little bit. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to grab it here. Yeah, you can see that it's probably, sometimes on these, they get twisted a little bit, the fabric. What I don't want to do is make this a 30-minute video, which sometimes it can become when you're trying to fix a bag and you want it to be exact, especially if it's a favorite bag of yours that you just really love and you want to be back to normal. A collector's bag of some sort or something like that, which I'm guilty of having quite a few of. Okay. Alright. You can kind of see how this actually works without trying to make this a very, very long video. I'm going to leave it at that. I could work on this some more and get it, but I want to talk to you about a few other things. And that is some disclaimers. Number one, not all poles are repairable. This is especially true if your pole runs all the way past the seam on the side of the bag. So where these two fabrics meet here, there's a seam, and if that pole has been pulled past and out of the seam back here, you can only work it so far until you find yourself at the end of this with a bit of extra thread sticking out. And once you're out of room, then in those cases you may need to either cut or burn the thread at the end, and this may cause issues too, so proceed at your own risk in doing this. Sometimes also the thread is so frayed from a really harsh snag that you received, or maybe if you've been playing with it for a while and it has gotten very frayed, it's not a real tight thread anymore. Sometimes those can be fairly messy and be difficult to actually make look clean again. Number two, bag repair is an art, not a science. This takes practice and patience. Sometimes it can take much, much longer, as I said, to go back and forth, working that thread, trying to figure out its original position. Also, sometimes a thread can get turned so that the ink is actually spun. It's hard to show here, but if you imagine my finger as a thread, it can turn, and that ink that was printed on this side can be underneath. That is what I suspect is going on here, and sometimes that can take a lot of work trying to get it back into its original position and spun back around, and sometimes you just can't get it quite perfect. And finally, number three, we cannot give you any sort of guarantee that you're going to have positive results or that you won't damage your bag further. So engage in bag repair at your own risk. All right, that's it. To pick up your own bag repair tool or many other high-quality cornhole products at great prices, visit inthebagcornhole.com. Thanks for watching.